Brielle lifted her hand so fast I barely registered the movement before it landed across Asher's cheek. The crack sliced through the lodge louder than her ring light, louder than the 20 relatives packed into that long wooden table. My son's cry hitched into silence. No one reached for him. Not Doris. Not Walter. Not Brielle, whose phone was still pointed at her own face. Knox pushed his chair back. Slow. Deliberate. The kind of movement that warns the room something irreversible has begun. "Brielle," he said, voice low and steady. "Get out." She blinked like she had misheard him. It was a tap. He ruined my live stream. "You people are so dramatic." Knox stood fully, shoulders squared. "Pack your things. You are done for tonight." A few cousins shifted uncomfortably. My mother finally spoke. Her tone clipped. "Knox." There's no need to escalate. I held Asher tighter, feeling his small body trembling against my chest. My voice surprised even me. Quiet. Level. Not shaking the way it used to. She hit him. In front of everyone. Brielle scoffed. "Oh, please. Raven. You love making scenes." The room went still again. The kind of silence that chooses sides before anyone admits it. If you have ever seen a moment that changed everything, stay with me. This was mine. I learned to disappear long before I understood the word. At 11, I was already familiar with the extra chair pushed against the dining room wall. My chair. Brielle always got the center seat. Chin lifted, hair smoothed by Doris as if she were preparing her for a magazine cover instead of a family dinner. That night, I remember reaching for an open spot beside her. Doris's hand touched my shoulder, gentle but firm. Let Brielle sit there. Raven. She needs the light. Walter adjusted his glasses, pretending not to hear. He always pretended. Brielle smirked as she slid into the seat I wanted. "You can see fine from over there," she said, pointing at the wall. I swallowed the sting, moving quietly to my place. No one noticed. Years later, at 15, the pattern sharpened. I came home holding a state science fair ribbon, proud for once. Brielle bumped into me in the hallway, splashing red paint all over the ribbon she knew I cared about. "Oh my God, sorry," she chirped, not sounding sorry at all. Doris rushed over straight to Brielle. "Sweetheart, are you hurt? That must have scared you." I stared at the ruined ribbon in my hands. "It was an accident," Doris said without looking at me. "Raven, do not make this bigger than it is," Walter murmured. "Listen to your mother." The same sentence followed me into 17, when Brielle demanded $50 from the money I saved from dog sitting. "You know she cannot handle budgeting," Doris told me. "Just help your sister." By then, silence had already settled into my body like a second spine. I carried it into adulthood without even realizing it. But the night Brielle slapped Asher, that quiet cracked not loudly, not all at once, but enough for the break to finally begin. Motherhood did not soften the old wounds, it exposed them. When Asher arrived 8 weeks early, tiny and fighting under the humming machines of the NICU, every instinct in me sharpened. I stood beside his incubator for hours, listening to the rhythm of his breath, terrified of losing something I had only just begun to know. Brielle visited once. She walked in wearing a glittered jacket, her heels clicking against the tile like she was entering a runway instead of a neonatal unit. "Do they really let anyone in here?" she whispered loudly, wrinkling her nose. "Keep your voice down," I said, touching the incubator's edge. "He is overstimulated easily." Brielle rolled her eyes. "You act like he is made of paper." When Asher shifted and let out a small cry, she leaned closer, too close, and snapped, "Raven, relax. He is not dying." A nurse stepped in, her tone clipped. "Ma'am, please give the baby space." Brielle huffed, flipping her hair. "Everybody is so sensitive." The word hit me the same way it did when I was a child. I felt the old training pulling at me, urging me to apologize, to shrink, to smooth the moment. Knox placed a hand on my back. "Raven is not the problem," he told her quietly. Brielle laughed. "You two are exhausting." When she left, her perfume hung in the air like something sour. The nurse touched my shoulder gently. "He is safe," she said. But I was shaking not from fear of losing Asher, but from realizing how quickly my family's cruelty could seep into the next generation. That night, I stayed beside him until morning, watching his tiny chest rise and fall, promising myself I would not let their patterns become his inheritance. After the slap, I carried Asher into the hallway, away from the noise. His cheek was still warm against my shoulder. I focused on his breathing, steady and soft, trying to keep mine from spiraling. Footsteps followed, sharp, intentional. Brielle. She leaned against the wall like she owned the space. "You made a scene," she said, folding her arms. "Honestly, Raven, you always overreact." I shifted Asher higher in my arms. "You hit my child." It was a tap. Her voice rose, too loud for a hallway. "Your baby screamed into my live stream. I had sponsorship eyes on that video. You ruined the moment." I swallowed. "He is an infant, Brielle." "He cried because he is an infant." She stepped closer, eyes narrowing. "There you go again, turning nothing into drama." Doris appeared behind her, smoothing her cardigan even though nothing was out of place. "Raven, your tone is getting sharp. We can talk calmly, or you can take a minute to collect yourself." My tone, I repeated, holding Asher tighter. He was struck. Doris lowered her voice as if delivering a diagnosis. "You have always been too emotional to read situations correctly." Behind her, Walter hovered, silent as ever. Something settled inside me, quiet, heavy, unmoving. "I am not the one who needs to collect myself." Brielle's mouth twisted. "Do not start acting brave. It does not suit you." I met her eyes, and for the first time, she blinked first. Doris frowned. "What is that supposed to mean?" "It means," I said, adjusting Asher against my chest, "I am done performing the part you wrote for me." Their faces shifted confusion, irritation, something close to fear, but none of them stepped forward. I turned toward the stairs, the weight in my chest no longer submission, but something closer to awakening. Knox drove us home without a word. The silence between us was not distance, it was recognition. Asher slept in his car seat, a soft hiccup escaping every few breaths. When we stepped inside our small craftsman house, the clock on the stove read 12:47 in the morning. I laid Asher in his crib and stood there longer than I meant to, watching his tiny fingers curl and uncurl. When I finally stepped into the living room, Knox was waiting. "Raven," he said quietly, "you do not have to let this slide." "I am not letting it slide." I told him. My voice surprised me calm, certain. "I am remembering everything." I picked up my phone and opened a blank note. December 24th, 9:07 p.m. Physical contact from Brielle Ellis Kane to Asher Baylor. I typed, "Witnesses Doris Ellis, Walter Ellis, multiple extended relatives." The words formed cleanly, one after another. Knox set a warm mug of chamomile tea beside me. "You are shaking." "I know." I steadied my hands. "It does not mean I am wrong." I opened my photo roll and tapped the picture I had taken in the lodge hallway, Asher's faint cheek mark, time-stamped 9/13. Knox exhaled. "You documented it." "I have documented everything since he was born." I said, "The RSV scare, the missed appointments they did not offer to help with, the time Brielle yelled near his incubator." I paused. I think I always knew this day would come. I created a new Google Drive folder titled Asher Safety Log and uploaded the image. Then screenshots Doris texting. Do not ruin the holiday vibe with your worrying. Brielle complaining about sponsorships. Walter's unread messages from earlier in the week. Knox lowered himself onto the couch beside me. If you need me to say something tomorrow, I will. You already did, I said. Tonight. You said it when I could not. He nodded once, eyes steady. I opened my email and typed a message to the family advocate I had spoken to during Asher's NICU follow-ups. I need guidance. There was physical contact tonight. I have documentation. I hovered for a breath, then pressed send. The whoosh of the email leaving felt like something inside me shifting quiet but irreversible. Doris called 3 days later. No greeting, no acknowledgement of the bruise or the email. Just her clipped voice pushing through the phone. We need a family discussion. Tonight. Knox heard every word from across the room. He raised an eyebrow but said nothing. I held Asher on my hip. His small hand curled in my shirt. A discussion about what I asked. You misunderstood the situation, Doris replied. Everyone agrees. Everyone, I repeated. Walter's voice appeared faintly in the background. Raven, let us clear this up face to face. I felt the familiar pull toward compliance, the training built from years of being told to soften, to adjust, to absorb. But Asher stirred against me, and the warmth of his weight steadied me. We will come, I said. But I am not leaving him with a sitter. Doris exhaled sharply. Fine, just be reasonable. When I hung up, Knox stepped closer. They are circling the wagons. Yes, I said. They expect me to fold. Are you ready for whatever they try? His voice was low, not warning checking. I am not folding, I answered. That evening, as we walked into the Ellis Lodge again, Brielle was already seated at the long table, her posture rigid. Doris hovered behind her like a shield. Walter stood near the fireplace, hands tucked into his pockets. Doris spoke first. Raven, let us all try to stay calm. Knox placed his hand on the back of my chair before I sat. Staying calm is not the same as staying silent, he said. Brielle's jaw clenched. Here we go, she muttered. The air tightened, heavy with old rules and the first crack running straight through them. I placed the folder on the table without ceremony. No flourish, no trembling, just paper, evidence, the truth they had all looked away from. Brielle let out a laugh that scraped the air. What is that supposed to be? Raven, your little diary. Knox stayed standing behind me, hands resting on the back of my chair, anchoring the space. It is documentation, he said. Doris's smile tightened. Raven, this is unnecessary. We are family. We handle things privately. Walter cleared his throat. Let us not escalate. I opened the folder and slid the first page toward them Asher's cheek, the faint mark visible even under the soft hallway light. This was taken 10 minutes after you struck him, I said. Brielle rolled her eyes so hard her head tilted back. You edited that. Everyone knows phone cameras distort color. I sent it to a pediatric nurse. I replied. Her assessment is attached. Doris inhaled sharply. You went outside the family. I protected my child, I said. Brielle leaned forward. You always wanted to play the victim. Now you are dragging Asher into your fantasies. Knox straightened. Enough. But Brielle kept going, voice cracking around the edges. You are jealous, Raven. You always have been. You could not stand that Mom and Dad loved me more, that everyone did. And now you are hiding behind that baby like he gives you some kind of moral high ground, Doris whispered. Brielle. But Brielle wasn't finished. She jabbed a finger toward me. Just admit it. Nobody even wanted that baby. Not really. My breath stopped. The room stilled. Knox moved first. Slow. Controlled. Terrifyingly certain. Get out! Brielle blinked, stunned. You cannot talk to me like you can leave, he said, voice like a closing door. We are done here. Walter looked away. Doris's face crumpled, and Brielle finally understood no one was stepping between her and the truth this time. She stood, grabbed her purse, muttered something that did not land, and walked out without looking back. The door closed behind Brielle with a soft click. No one moved. It was the first time silence had not been used against me. It was simply there, waiting for the next truth to land. Doris pressed her fingers to her forehead. "Raven, what happens now?" Her voice trembled, thin at the edges. It was not concern for Asher. It was fear of losing the version of the family she had curated for decades. I gathered the papers slowly, page by page. "Now," I said, keeping my voice even. We stopped pretending nothing happened. Walter finally spoke, barely above a murmur. "This could have been handled differently." Knox stepped forward. "Handled differently by who Raven protected her child. The rest of you protected Brielle." Doris's eyes flashed. "You do not understand the pressure she is under. She has sponsorships, expectations, an entire audience watching her. That audience is not my responsibility," I said, "and it is not an excuse." She opened her mouth, searching for something that would regain control. Nothing came. Walter looked at me then, really looked like he was seeing the daughter he had avoided for years. "Raven," he said quietly, "we cannot lose you. You already did." I answered, lifting Asher into my arms. Tonight just made it clear. Knox placed a steady hand on my back as we walked toward the exit. No one followed us. The room stayed silent, but for once, the silence belonged to me. 2 weeks passed before I could breathe without bracing for impact. The Ellis Lodge, the yelling, Brielle's words, all of it drifted farther every time Asher laughed against my shoulder. One afternoon, the winter sun softened over our small backyard. Knox watched from the porch as I set Asher down near the wooden bench. He pulled himself up, wobbly and determined. Knox murmured, "He is steadier than last week. He is learning," I said. "So am I." I held my hands out, close enough for reassurance but not touching. Asher took a small step, then another, his little breath catching with effort. He reached me, pressing his forehead to my knee. I smoothed his hair back. "You did it," I whispered. Knox came closer. "You did too." I shook my head. I just stopped shrinking. He rested a hand on my shoulder. That was the hardest part. Inside, on the kitchen counter, lay a folded letter addressed to Brielle. I had written it days earlier, plain, honest, without venom. I told her I hoped she would find help, boundaries, something real. I never sent it. Knox noticed my eyes drift toward the counter. "You are not mailing it," he said softly. "No," I answered. "Closure does not need her." Asher tugged my sleeve, wanting to stand again. I lifted him onto his feet, letting him find his balance. The cold air felt clean in my lungs. "This ends with me," I told Knox. "Whatever comes next, it is on our terms. If you have ever fought your way out of a story someone else wrote for you, keep going. Someone who needs to hear how you made it will find strength in your voice.